Welcome to the Confessional Booth. I'm your host, Marie Wagner. I'm a certified sex, love, and relationship coach, as well as a hands-on de-armoring practitioner. The Confessional Booth is a safe space where we bring voice to what has been hidden, where we explore the things that shape us beneath the surface, and it's a place where shame and other internal blockages begin to lose their grip. As a result, we can start to experience more freedom, energy, joy, pleasure, and to ultimately feel more fully ourselves. Let's begin. When we talk about desire, I think one of the biggest misunderstandings we have is that we tend to reduce desire to sex. When someone says the word desire, most people immediately think about attraction, intimacy, or sexuality. And in my world of sex, love, and intimacy, most often desire is about these things. And while desire absolutely includes those things, desire can also be much bigger than that. Desire is the impulse that moves us toward life. It is the part of us that becomes curious. It is the part of us that wants to create, to explore, to touch, to connect, to laugh, to learn, to move, to dance, to love. Desire is our orientation toward aliveness. When I work with clients, especially those who have spent years living with shame, one of the first things we do is to explore desire. Sometimes they say to me, I've lost my desire. But other people will say things like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't feel excited about anything anymore. I feel disconnected, shut off, shut down. I don't have much libido. I don't know what I want. I just feel flat. I just feel nothing. And it may very well be about a lack of desire, but if you look a little deeper, it could be about a nervous system that has spent so much time protecting itself that it no longer knows how to move toward pleasure. And that is a very different problem. One requires more effort, the other requires more safety. There is a remarkable difference between surviving and feeling alive. Many of us become incredibly skilled at survival. We learn to perform, to produce, to care for everyone else, to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, to anticipate the needs of others, to stay busy enough that we never have to slow down and ask ourselves a much more difficult question. What actually makes me feel alive? That question sounds simple. For many people, it is incredibly difficult to answer because they have spent years disconnecting from the very part of themselves that notices desire. Counselor and author of Healing the Shame That Binds You, John Bradshaw, often speaks about toxic shame as an interruption in the development of the authentic self. If shame teaches us that parts of ourselves are unacceptable, then desire is often one of the first casualties. A child naturally reaches toward what interests them. They dance, they touch, they explore, they ask questions. They express excitement without self-consciousness. They cry openly. They laugh loudly. They are deeply connected to their bodies. Over time, however, many children begin receiving messages about what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Don't be too much. Don't be so loud. Don't ask so many questions. Don't touch that. Don't feel that. Don't want that. Good boys don't cry. Good girls don't make people uncomfortable. Eventually, the nervous system begins learning that authenticity carries risk. And whenever authenticity becomes risky, desire begins going underground. Carl Jung believed that the rejected parts of ourselves don't disappear. They become part of our shadow. I often think that desire is one of the most misunderstood aspects of the shadow. Not because desire is dark, because it has so often been hidden. The artist who never paints, the man who longs for tenderness but believes tenderness makes him weak, the woman who has never allowed herself to receive pleasure without guilt, the executive who secretly wants a slower and more meaningful life, the partner who has never spoken about what truly brings them pleasure because they fear judgment. None of those desires disappear. They simply wait. Renowned Jungian analyst James Hollis writes that much of adulthood is an invitation to recover the life that was interrupted. I love that idea because reclaiming desire is not about becoming someone new. It is often about remembering who we were before shame taught us to edit ourselves. And that often goes back to your early life. One of the most fascinating things neuroscience has taught us is that desire is deeply connected to anticipation. Neuroscience researcher Andrew Huberman often explains that dopamine is frequently misunderstood as the chemical of pleasure. In reality, dopamine is much more involved in motivation, anticipation, and movement towards something meaningful. It helps orient us toward possibility. It fuels curiosity. It creates momentum. Notice what happens when you become excited about an upcoming trip, a creative project, a new relationship, or learning a new skill. Often, the anticipation itself is energizing. Your posture changes, your eyes brighten, you begin imagining possibilities. You feel more motivated. This is not just positive thinking, it is neurochemistry. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine years of hearing that your desires are selfish, inappropriate, unrealistic, or shameful. What happens then? Your brain begins associating desire with disappointment, criticism, or rejection. Over time, the nervous system just stops or veers away from investing energy in moving toward what it believes will create pain. This is one reason shame is so effective. It suppresses anticipation, it suppresses curiosity, it suppresses behavior, it suppresses movement toward life itself. Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory helps us understand why. Our nervous system is constantly asking whether the environment is safe enough for connection, exploration, creativity, and intimacy. When we feel safe, the ventral vagal system supports openness. Our breathing naturally becomes slower and fuller. The diaphragm moves more freely. Facial muscles soften. Eye contact becomes easier. Our voice becomes more expressive. Blood flow supports digestion, immune function, and the genitals and reproductive system. Our attention widens. Curiosity returns. We become more playful. And play is actually one of the clearest signs that the nervous system feels safe. Think about how children play when they feel secure. Think about how adults laugh when they are deeply relaxed. Think about how you laugh and express when you are deeply relaxed and natural, meaning you feel like you can just be yourself. Playfulness is physiology. Now compare that to shame. When shame is activated, the nervous system narrows its focus. The shoulders lift, the jaw tightens, the pelvic floor, including the anus, may unconsciously contract. Breathing becomes shallow and neck and chest dominant. The sympathetic nervous system prepares for protection. If the experience becomes overwhelming, some people shift into a dorsal vagal shutdown. They become numb, detached, disconnected. It may seem like they don't care because their body is conserving energy. This has enormous implications for sexuality. Many people believe they have a problem with desire when what they actually have is a problem with safety. The body rarely opens to pleasure while it is organizing around protection. Arousal is not simply a psychological event, it is physiological. The blood flow changes, breathing changes, the pelvic floor responds, arouses, or excites. The heart becomes more variable. Oxytocin increases with trust and affectionate touch. The brain begins integrating sensation rather than scanning for danger. In other words, turn on requires a presence that is curious and feels safe enough in that situation. And this type of presence is very difficult when your nervous system believes it needs to stay vigilant. Dr. Gabor Mate often reminds us that our adaptations are intelligent. The body never asks, how do I maximize pleasure? It first asks, how do I survive? If shutting down desire once protected you from rejection, humiliation, criticism, or heartbreak, your nervous system remembers that strategy. It isn't trying to deprive you of joy, it is trying to protect you from pain. Author Robert Greene writes about seduction in a way that I think extends far beyond romance. The most magnetic people are rarely the ones trying hardest to impress. They're deeply connected to themselves. They have presence and curiosity and confidence that comes from embodiment rather than performance. People are naturally drawn to those who are fully alive. And that is what shame steals, not simply confidence, aliveness. So, how do we begin reclaiming desire and turn on? The first step is becoming curious again, not just feigning curiosity, actually noticing what makes your breath deepen, what makes time disappear. When does your body soften instead of brace? What conversations leave you energized instead of depleted? What kind of touch helps your shoulders relax? What environments make your nervous system feel expansive? You may consider this to be a mindset exercise, and you can also consider this to be a kind of nervous system education. Your body is constantly giving you information. Learning to notice that information is how you begin rebuilding trust with yourself. The second step is practicing small moments of pleasure without needing to earn them. For many people, pleasure has become conditional. I'll rest when everything is finished. I'll enjoy myself after I've been productive. I'll relax when everyone else is taken care of. But keep in mind, the nervous system doesn't learn safety through achievement. It learns safety through repeated embodied exercises. Take 5 minutes to sit in the morning sun. Drink your coffee without your phone. Walk outside and notice the sensation of the wind on your skin. Listen to music that makes your body want to move. Take 3 slow, diaphragmatic breaths before answering the next email. Notice how your feet feel on the floor. These moments seem small. Physiologically, they are anything but small. Every one of them sends signals of orientation, regulation, and presence. Every one is an opportunity to remind your nervous system that life is more than threat detection. And finally, reclaiming desire asks us to become honest with ourselves. We may think we want something because we think we should want it. Really ask yourself, do you really want it? Ask yourself, what genuinely brings you alive? Sometimes that is sexual, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes reclaiming turn on means dancing again. Sometimes it means painting. Sometimes it means finally asking your partner for what feels nourishing to you. Sometimes it means saying no for the first time in your life. Sometimes it means allowing yourself to receive love without immediately wondering what you have to do in return. Desire grows in environments where authenticity is welcomed. This includes sexual authenticity. When we stop performing who we think we need to be, we create space for the authentic self to emerge. Psychologically, we begin separating our identity from the shame we have carried. Emotionally, we rediscover curiosity, love, appreciation, excitement, joy, longing, and affection. Physiologically, the nervous system becomes more regulated, the breath deepens, muscular guarding softens, heart rate variability improves, and the body becomes more available for connection, intimacy, and pleasure. And spiritually, something huge begins to happen. We begin trusting and opening to our desires instead of fearing or suppressing or denying them. And we can start to listen to them with openness, discernment, compassion, honesty, and curiosity. Desire connects us to ourself, to others, and to God, the divine, the universe, nature, whatever you call it. Reclaiming your desires is not so much about becoming more desirable. It is more about how to feel more energy and to feel more alive. Because shame wants us to shrink. Desire invites us to expand. And healing is often the gradual process of choosing expansion, one honest and vulnerable moment at a time. This is the Confessional Booth. If you like this episode, please rate it and subscribe and refer it to anyone you know who may benefit. To find out more about what I offer, head over to my website, mariewagner.ca. On Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn at Marie Wagner, and on Instagram at The Marie Wagner Coach. Thanks for being here. See you in the next episode.